tell me why is this better than me taking capsules?
First of all, the most important thing is, I mean, your name's on there. It's customized for you. It says made for Grant on there. So what happened was they took your genetic analyses, looked at the specific vitamins, nutrients, and minerals that you're genetically predisposed to be deficient in, and then made these packets.
Do you think, are you confident or excited about RFK actually changing things?
Yeah,
you
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just something as simple as tallow.
I hear this overall statement about all folic acids, the spraying is terrible.
Synthetic folic acid, particularly in people who don't convert it properly into bioavailable folate in the body, can cause inflammation. So my whole philosophy was, I want more of a stupid home than a smart home. So meaning, like, we went through the whole thing, metal shielded wiring throughout, Cat 8 Ethernet cable, so there's no Wi-Fi, but there's little connectors in every room where you can plug in. All the lighting is a mix of infrared, red light, incandescent lighting, so it's as though you're in the sunlight when you're in the home. Super high-end HEPA air filtration. There's a 14-stage reverse osmosis water filtration that then hyper-oxygenates the water after it goes through the filtration. So every glass of water you pour, and this freaked me out the first few times, you pour the water and it's cloudy. And I thought,
right, because
this water filter isn't working, and it's actually 40 ppm oxygen in every glass of water that you drink, and then it remineralizes it, and so everything, the air, the light, the water, the electricity from the ground up. I mean, even the every floor of the house is grounded. We used copper wiring that then goes into a ground connect. So if you are, because you look at like PEMF, right? So part of the Superhuman protocol, that's like grounding or earthing on steroids, right? You're taking the natural healing frequencies that the earth emits that are kind of anti-inflammatory and charging that up to a higher amplitude. But imagine if you were in your house and you were just grounded or earthed, no matter what floor you were on, where you were sleeping. So every last
so I could
detail
be
we
in
built
a
into the house.
25 floor building and still be grounded.
Yeah. I mean, if they've built it so that there's the copper underneath the conductive flooring. Right. So yeah, I mean, it's
now.
It's
so does
incredible.
the mat? And again, I don't understand a lot of the technology behind what we do at 10X Health Systems. So this helps me because sometimes I don't use the mat because I'm like, I'm not feeling anything.
Yeah. Well,
What is the mat doing to me?
So if you use like super duper duper high end PEMF, like super powerful PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field therapy, that is something like the really high power ones. There's even some that come out of the horse racing industry, and you put one of those on and it just shakes your body. It's that powerful. It's almost like a shock.
The ones that you feel the boom going through your body.
Exactly. Those are
sometimes they're rings or
usually it's a ring or coil, and you put it around a knee or whatever. Sometimes it's a mat. They even make them that are full on lounge chairs, massage tables. Right. But that really, really high power PEMF is typically at one frequency and is designed for an injury. So you, I don't know, like 5.0 hertz, and you just blast away in the issue. But if you look at
what's that doing to the injury?
So it opens and closes cell membranes. That's what the electricity is doing. So you're flushing out metabolic waste and increasing blood flow to an area. But then for the injury part, because it's so powerful, and I don't know if you've felt this before when you've used it, it's almost like it releases a cramp, releases a spasm. Like I threw out my back last night at the gym, and if I had one of those in my room right now, I'd have it right underneath the low back, just basically releasing all those muscles that have gone into a protective spasm. So it's incredible for that. But then if you're looking at wanting more of like a full body effect, like a full frequency sweep that covers the entire body, not specifically for an injury, but for like the PureWave one, it's got a tranquility setting for relaxation. It's got a stability setting for just everyday use, then a vitality setting for energy, pre-workout, whatever. So that's putting out thousands and thousands of frequencies almost as though it's sweeping every cell in the body. You don't feel it because it's lower power.
Now, do I need to be right underneath that, or if I'm in proximity of it?
You kind of got to be right on top of it. No,
so
it'll
if my
go
wife
through
is on it, I'm not getting it. Because I think that's what she's been doing to me, dude.
No.
I think she's been like, I think she's keeping it all for herself.
Yeah, well, that's where you need a couple.
Half of everything that I have is mine, and everything that she has is hers.
Yeah, so the way I have it set up is I have it underneath the top sheet of the bed. And so I'll just put it on Tranquility at night, and then I'll typically snooze for like 20 minutes in the morning with it on Vitality. And then I get up and I go into the office and I do some red light and do some oxygen. So I kind of like do that first and then move on to the rest of the stuff. But the PEMF is basically just sweeping the whole body. Yeah. I run the Tranquility. I'll put it on for like an hour, so I'll fall asleep with it on. Yeah, but it doesn't. It's you have to be in contact with the surface of it. It doesn't travel through there. They have some machines. Like there's this one called a Biocharger, and it looks like something off of a spaceship. It's a big Tesla coil, and it pushes the PEMF out like 15 feet from the unit. But that's a pretty hefty, loud, expensive setup. So this, like the mats,
I don't hear anything.
You got to be in contact.
I don't feel anything. I just so you're saying it's taking it's hitting me at a molecular.
Cellular. Yeah. So those frequencies are basically targeting different cells in the body that respond to different frequencies. So if you look at thousands of different cells, you look at the liver and the kidney and the pancreas and the heart, basically you're sweeping all of that because those frequencies are designed to cover all of it, but it's a lower power basically. So, and
this is why I wanted to have you on here, okay? Because we've done extremely well with 10X Health System, as you know.
Yeah.
Part of it's the human protocol, the Superhuman protocol, and part of it is our gene testing supplements. And part of it is the microphone. Sometimes it's just in the wrong place.
Part of it is the microphone. Yep.
So, and I really appreciate everything you're doing with us and educating people and us on where we need to be going next. On the mat, what does a mat like that cost? What do we sell those for?
The PureWave?
Yeah.
I think it's like well, it depends with the accessories, but I think it's around $5,000, and then so that will give you a mat and then a pillow. And the pillow, technically, you could use that whatever
around an injury,
or liver, back of the head, whatever. It's a little more concentrated because it's a smaller surface area. And then I actually just got my hands on this is some kind of brand new as far as PEMF technology. They got glasses now, so you can wear glasses to target the ocular nerves and the cranial nerves. And then you've also got for earpieces that you can use for tinnitus or hearing issues, balance issues, etc. And those plug into the same control unit. So technically, I'm guessing that's an extra like $800 or something to throw those in. But basically, you've got that one control unit, and you can plug the pillow. You can plug two things in at once. You can plug in like the pillow and the mat, or the mat and the glasses, or whatever.
So now, how does somebody justify spending that kind of money on anything? Not alone just a mat that is doing this thing to you, this voodoo thing.
I mean,
tell me how do you make sense of it? What'd you spend on your house just to get your house right?
The way that I justify it is preventive medicine. Right? You either pay now to stay healthier for the rest of your life, or you pay later.
And when it's costing
costs that add up when stuff actually strikes you. So if we're looking at something like let's say Superhuman, for example, that's all based on cellular optimization and triggering the mitochondria to be more healthy, to produce more ATP, with mitochondrial dysfunction being one of the causes of accelerated aging and basically feeling low energy levels as you get older. So if you look at that, basically you're starting off with the PEMF. You're opening and closing cell membranes. You're introducing what's called alkalinity into the cell. You're removing metabolic waste, and you're increasing blood flow. And then after that, you move on to consuming oxygen, and this would be like setting up the Hypermax next to your bike or whatever. Right. Or some people who are lazy, technically you can like lay in bed or sit in a chair and breathe, but you get less oxygen delivery if you're not moving. If you're not building up an oxygen deficit, you're not going to deliver as much oxygen to tissue. So there's a few different ways to get oxygen. We'll rabbit hole here for a second. Basically, you can breathe very, very low amounts of oxygen and then blast yourself with high amounts of oxygen. That's called intermittent hypoxic hyperoxic training, IHHT. So there's some machines, and you sit them next to a chair, and you can flip it from low oxygen to high oxygen, or it'll automatically cycle between those. The other way to do it is you can increase the actual pressure in the room that you're in and breathe oxygen in an oxygen infused room, and this would be like a hyperbaric chamber, which is very popular now, and good for wound healing if you're in a hospital setting, and just good for general oxygenation if you just want to lay down and take a nap and something like that. That's the second way to do it. Third way to do it is to build up an oxygen deficit while you're exercising, and then blast the muscles with oxygen because they're going to take
How
more
would
of it
I
up.
build a deficit while I'm training?
Automatically, by the nature of training, you build up a deficit, because as soon as you start to move the muscles, let's say you're on a bicycle. So the way I have it is I've got the Hypermax set up to it's kind of cool. You ever seen one of those vibrating plates that you can stand on
Yeah,
at
sure.
the gym.
Yeah.
So this is a bike. It's made by a company called Power Plate, and actually the bike vibrates.
Oh, wow.
So I've got the vibrating bike, and that's set next to the oxygen. So just the mere nature of causing my legs to contract and suck up oxygen, then when I'm breathing 93% oxygen, I'm getting more into the muscle, and by doing the PEMF before that, the cells are basically more receptive to taking up more oxygen.
Got it.
Yeah. And so why is that good? Well, if you look at increased oxygenation, that's allowing you to produce more ATP. So,
ATP.
Yeah.
Which
basically
is
the body's energy currency, adenosine triphosphate. So then you look at the red light piece, and this is probably the one that's most confusing to people, but let's say you then go get underneath the red light panel, or technically you can, like if you have like the Theralite panels, you can sandwich those on either side of the bike and do the red light while you're riding on the bike with the oxygen if you just want to time hack things. But let's say you go and do the red light bed or the red light after you do the oxygen. Well, when those photons penetrate the skin and hit the cell, they actually kick what's called nitric oxide synthase, NOS, off of a part of the cell where it can then attach oxygen. So you're essentially allowing even more oxygen uptake while simultaneously getting all the benefits of red light, collagen and elastin and triggering the mitochondria to produce more ATP, but then also increased oxygenation. So, and then the cool thing, if you want to take an even deeper dive, is now you got something like methylene blue, right?
Yeah. I was going to ask about the methylene blue.
So this is basically,
not the coffee.
Kind of related to a book that I read like 3 years ago. It had a bunch of English typos in it because this old Russian book called Human Photosynthesis, and it goes into this idea that when light hits certain molecules in the blood, particularly dark blue, dark black, dark purplish type of molecules, it can actually split water to free up oxygen and produce even more ATP, almost like photosynthesizing like a plant. So it takes anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes for something like methylene blue to hit your bloodstream in high amounts. So if you get up in the morning and you do something like that, and then you go off and eventually hit the red light, you're actually supercharging the body's ability to make even more ATP.
Yeah, so would the methylene blue be effective if I'm not hitting it with red light?
It's still effective, but it's nowhere near as effective. Like what I tell people, because the sunlight's great for this too. Sunlight, you've got all the red light spectrums.
Right.
So
early in the morning or any time during the day.
Anytime.
Any sunlight.
Let's say you take methylene. Let's say you normally go on a walk in the sunshine in the morning.
Yeah.
Just try taking methylene blue an hour before, and it feels like a cup of coffee has hit your brain. Like it's way more effective when you pair it with light. It's still effective.
Right.
Plus, it's got. You hear a lot of people talking about this now, the antiviral, antibacterial effects of it. It got a lot of press during COVID by, underground physicians who were using that as a side treatment. So it's got all that going on for it besides what it does when it interacts with light. But the coolest part from an energetic standpoint is when it interacts with light. So back to the question that you asked me, why would somebody even do all of this? For me, the investment is to feel incredible. Like I will probably go over to the health center by your place after we podcast.
We have one in this building
and do the Superhuman protocol because I flew 7 hours yesterday. My back hurt, and I will feel incredible after I do that because I'm allowing my body to make way more ATP than it's making right now.
Mm-hmm. So. And to me, like the time I'm sure everybody can relate to this, I wait until something happens and I'm like, okay, I got to pay attention.
Yeah.
I got to pay attention whether you're 45 or 55 or 65. When is a person too young in your mind to even bother with this stuff? I got a kid 13 and 15. Should they be doing red light, methylene blue, supplements, precision tests,
from a biological standpoint, a lot of this stuff kids can do. Right. Then there's certainly like testosterone replacement therapy or something like that. You obviously aren't going to give to a little boy, and and you aren't going to have a 5-year-old do heavy back squats or something like that.
Right.
But when it comes to mitochondrial optimization, all my sons, I've got twin sons, and my wife, they've done the genetic test. We've dialed in the supplements that they're taking. Like they have.
How old are the kids?
My sons both have. They're twins, so it's pretty easy. Basically, reading one genetic report was identical to reading the other.
So you got a half price.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I've done like 3 different different genetic tests on them, and different tests test different SNPs. And the only gene variant I've ever found different between them is that one converts testosterone into estrogen at a slightly faster rate than the other guy. And hopefully they're not going to blush if they hear this podcast. But the one that does more of the testosterone conversion to estrogen is also like a little more creative, a little more soft. So you can almost like see that in his personality.
Oh, wow.
So what kind of things
what happened to me?
do
What do you figure
out?
happened to me then?
I have no clue. Okay. I'm sure you.
Some
produce
people would claim they know everything about what happened to me.
No, but I mean, like, and I don't know if you've looked at any genetics related to testosterone or use testosterone.
Dude, I can't
like
read
that,
the panels. I can't read like I'm looking at all this stuff they're giving me. I'm like, God damn, can somebody tell me what it says? And they can tell me anything because I don't know.
Yeah, high natural production or supplementation. You see like a square jawline and thicker eyebrows and bigger muscles. Wow. And I mean, there's I think testosterone is a great cheat code on life for older men to use it. But the problem nowadays, and I'll get back to the genetic tests in a second, is that a lot of these pill mills for testosterone replacement therapy have sprung up. It's very easy to start on it. And the problem is, first of all, once you start on testosterone, it's very difficult to get off it. You'll feel like crap for 6, 8, 12 months. Usually you got to take something like Clomid or HCG or one of these stacks to kind of replace what the testosterone was giving you. You see a loss of fertility, right? Because your body doesn't make two primary fertility enhancing hormones, one called luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. You see ball shrinkage in some cases, and if it's improperly dosed, you see like aggression because you get these big surges in testosterone and then a drop, and that in no way mimics the natural little bits of testosterone that men are supposed to create during the day. And testosterone is important for women
and
too.
when does somebody quit producing that?
Usually you'll start to see testosterone drop off around 35 years old, but what I was getting at is that especially with a less active lifestyle, less sunshine, less people working in farming, construction, heavy lifting outdoors, etc., kids indoors playing video games and engaged in virtual sexual activities rather than real analog sexual activities. All of these things make a dent in natural testosterone levels. So what I tell guys especially is don't even think about getting dropped off by a helicopter on the top of Mount Everest for the testosterone piece until you've taken care of all the low-hanging fruit, which is basically lifting weights, particularly with your legs, where you have a high density of androgen receptors. So squats, deadlifts, things like don't be the toothpick leg guy. Right. Sunlight, low stress, good sleep, good relationships. And then if you look at the way testosterone is made, there's certain building blocks. Vitamin D, minerals, electrolytes, fish oil, creatine, boron, and I think I named them all. Zinc. So supplementing with things like that, or using something like a shotgun formula like that after getting your genetics tested, is a way to get the building blocks replaced. But testosterone is something that a lot of people are turning to too early. Yeah. So back to my son. Or my sons. So the genetic test that I did on them, if you open up the refrigerator now, there's a little side portion of the refrigerator that are their supplements. So they use a methylated B vitamin complex because they both have slightly slow MTHFR, and it's pretty common, and it's not a doom scroll. You just avoid high amounts of synthetic folic acid from grains and cereals, and you replace your methylated vitamins. They have low amounts of vitamin D receptor activity. So they both take vitamin D, and then they have poor glutathione or detox genes. So they both take glutathione. It's interesting. I have the same pattern. They got all that from me because I've got the MTHFR, the vitamin D, and the detox genes. All
Dude, I need to have you
impaired.
read mine. I need to have you break mine down for me.
Yeah, you can go through the book and it spells it out pretty well. And there's QR codes you can scan. There's a guy named Dr. Daniel who kind of walks you through stuff. His new book, by the way, is great. I don't know if you've checked it out.
I haven't.
Dr. Daniel, who is the guy who you see talking on the videos when you scan the QR code in the book, he just wrote a book called Unlock Your Genes. I actually am going to have him on my podcast, I think, next month to talk about it. Yeah. So my wife is completely different. For her, she's got low production of nitric oxide, right? So she's going to be predisposed to higher blood pressure. She has higher risk for bone density. for low bone density. So she
it.
has to pay attention to weightlifting, calcium, magnesium intake, etc. And really, those are her two primary ones: bone density and osteoporosis, and the nitric oxide blood pressure piece. So when you look at something like that, again, back to the root of your question, all of a sudden you are equipped with certain small things that you can do that are going to help ensure you're not predisposed for those diseases to manifest later on in life. And so back to the investment piece or the cost piece, it's kind of like, pay now or pay later, and
or suffer later.
Pay now.
Because really, it's the suffering.
Pay now and pay / suffer later.
Yeah, exactly. Because the price later, you're going to pay later.
Right.
You're going to pay in money.
Right. And
then you're going to also suffer. Like to me, that's like when you just explaining the mat to me. Okay, I have the mat and I'm not using the mat.
Yeah.
Or somebody told me, oh, you can just put the mat in half the bed and it'll push out. I'm like, why am I even risking that? Yeah. There's no payoff. I already own the mat. Just use it.
Yeah.
And then the red light, the oxygen, and the methylene blue. I'm using them every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I break away, if I don't know, how important do you think it is mentally that a person knows what these things are doing for them?
You could probably make an argument that you've got a little bit of
some
the power of placebo once you understand, because that works in both directions, right?
Right.
I'm kind of screwed because being in the nutrition industry and studying the biochemistry of food, I know what kind of a crap storm occurs in my body if I go to McDonald's. And it turns out, and research has actually shown this, there's for example, a milkshake study. And when they told people how many calories were in the milkshake and that it was a high calorie, super sweet milkshake, their blood sugar went up much higher. Wow. And they saw more of the inflammation compared to if they thought that it was a low calorie milkshake. So if you know that bag of potato chips is really unhealthy for you, it actually turns out to be even unhealthier for you than the person who has no clue, but it works in reverse, right? So
if I know, it should have some beneficiary.
Yeah, if I'm shelling out $25 for a fancy, spirulina coconut water superfood smoothie, and I know how good all those things are for me, it's going to be even better for me. Yeah. So I think that there is kind of a mental effect there. But then I also hear a lot of people, I don't know if you hear this too, they'll push back and be like, when do you even squeeze all this in? Something like PEMF and red light.
Oh, dude,
and
when you get sick, you'll squeeze it all in.
Yeah, well, I don't think
when you
it's
get
that
sick,
hard.
trust me, I had a buddy that a couple years ago, he got cancer. Super busy dude, traveling everywhere, all over the world. And everybody has a story of somebody
he didn't slow down, so his body slowed him down.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know this. The moment the cancer hit, bro, like he found time for everything. Yeah. Not just him, his wife, his kids, like the entire planet shifts the moment you have an emergency this giant and you make time. Yeah. And this is what I keep telling myself. My dad had heart problems for 10 years. He didn't have time either until the freaking heart said, why? Let me show you how much time you actually have available for you. Yeah. And so the people in Malibu that lost their homes, I'm like, they didn't have any time to go, but now they got time, So it's like at my age, I'll be 67. I can't believe I'm having to say that this month, but oh my God. Last night I was like 67, 57, 47. I remember when I was 17 years old, dude. Like I could do anything. Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, I got to pay attention. How do I stretch this out?
Drink 10 beers and run a marathon the next morning.
Yeah. Yep. And now it's like, okay, I don't want to live till I'm 107 and be suffering for the last 17 years. Right. I want to feel good. Yeah. I don't care how long I live.
As vital as possible, as close as possible to the day that you die. And I'm the same way. Like people who say they're going to live
till 150. But let me just say this. If it means
150.
I have to invest 30 minutes and a few bucks. Yeah. Now, the problem is with me is I just want somebody to tell me what to do. Yeah. As opposed to me actually learning. Like the book. I have not read the book. Dude. Right. I go through it. I look at the pictures.
So funny. We're opposite. I spent like an hour in the book as soon as it arrived. It was like a kid in a candy store. But that's, I geek out on that
that's your thing. What do you say to people that say this whole thing's just a big scam? Yeah. It's just an overpriced, no science. Yeah. Total BS.
Well, two things. First of all, real quick to close the loop on that timepiece.
Yeah.
I'm like a morning snuggler. I like to snuggle up to my wife and have a little time with her before I get out of bed.
Do not let Elena see this part, okay?
I flipped that thing on Tranquility.
You're just trying to win the women over
snuggle
right
up
now,
for like
bro.
20 minutes. And so that's done, right? Or in the morning, sorry, it's Vitality in the morning.
You're talking about the time
and then,
hack.
I usually read for a little while in bed as I'm falling asleep, so I'm doing Tranquility at night. So laying in bed doing the things I'd be doing anyway, so there's no time lost there. And then I lift weights in the morning, and all I do is before I lift weights, I go hit that bike with the oxygen on and the red light on. I'd be warming up anyways.
You're warming up
right?
anyway.
So it's
right.
15, 20 minutes with the oxygen and the red light. And then I'm a big use exercise as a university guy. So I rarely listen to music. So that's when I'm jamming through podcast interviews with people who I'm preparing to interview, audiobooks, Zoom calls that were recorded for business. So for me, it's pretty easy from a productivity standpoint. To the people who would raise an eyebrow at a lot of this stuff, this is kind of interesting. Have you ever heard of Google's Notebook LM?
No.
Okay. So when I first started talking to Brandon Dawson, the CEO of 10X Health, we were talking about the Superhuman protocol and the PEMF and the oxygen and the red light. I dug in and actually started to pull as many studies as I could off of PubMed about whether or not there's actual research, human clinical research behind how each of these work. And so what I did was I pulled this all into Google Notebook, and I created this huge study guide, FAQ section. It's fantastic for research because it'll take any references or sources that you pull in and then create this entire repository of accessible data for you. And here's what's cool. I love this part. So there's a button you can push called Studio. And they've had this out for maybe like 6 months. And if you press Studio, it will take all of those sources and references and create two people having a podcast discussion about everything in super realistic. They're AI voices, but they sound extremely human. So I've even taken like let's say lab data from a client who I'm going to do a consult with. I'll feed it into Notebook LM. Then I'll go hit the gym and listen to two people talking about the client who I'm going to be on a call with an hour later, going over their labs back and forth. So it's incredible. But
so you're saying we could take my data.
You could take the PDF of that, like all three of your books, and feed it in
copy
there,
it,
and we could create a podcast with two people talking about your labs. It's called Notebook LM. It's totally free. So
So
what
we should do is we should deliver this.
We
should deliver this to our clients.
Yeah, it'd be pretty easy to pull off. It's just a question of whether or not you create your own API that's like a Google Notebook LM lookalike, or just use that. Probably have to look into some of the HIPAA regulations on it, but anyways, but
if somebody signed off on it and said, I want to listen to
I want to listen to it to an
audio.
I want to listen
to my deal.
And you probably wouldn't have to use Notebook LM for that. There's some other ways that you could do it, feeding into any AI audio engine, because you can obviously feed labs.
You're running through it right
about
now.
this. There's ways to do this. Because if we have if we have a 10X Health app anyways, where people are accessing all their data, it would be cool to be able to, for the people who don't want to read and want a multimedia experience and don't want to watch videos because they got to sit stationary, to be able to literally go on a hike and listen to a podcast about their labs.
Maybe you're experiencing this right now, Grant.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be fun.
So what did I find when I pulled in all that data? There are reams and reams, literally thousands of studies on photobiomodulation, red light therapy, on PEMF therapy, on oxygen, even on methylene blue. You don't find, because it's just difficult to pull off a study like this because there's a lot of confounding variables. You don't find a lot of research on stacking all three together, right? So basically you're making a case that, well, this is really good for you, this is really good for you, this is really good for you. Here's a theorized mechanism of action of the order in which to do each of these, the PEMF, then the oxygen, then the red light, like we were talking about with the methylene blue, like 60 minutes before that. So then it comes down to simply anecdotal experience based on 4 different protocols that have lots of research behind them. It would be cool someday to see someone actually do like a full-on human clinical study on putting all 4 together, but you cannot deny the amount of research that exists right now on each of those individual variables.
You're saying there's too much data been collected that it could be a pure scam.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could go to PubMed right now and you could literally, like anybody listening, do a search for red light therapy or for technically the term for working out with the Hypermax is EWOT, exercise with oxygen therapy. That's the term used in exercise science. Or PEMF therapy or methylene blue. And you will just get knocked out with literally hundreds of studies on each of those individually and thousands of studies combined. So
to this emergence of biohackers that has now, you've been in the field how long?
Yeah. I started, gosh, I don't know if I want to give you the long or the short answer to the question.
Just give me the short answer.
Yeah,
because
okay. So the short answer is since bodybuilders are considered to be one of the original OG biohackers deep down in the underground forums, injecting weird things and taking different pre-workouts. I started bodybuilding when I was 20. I'm 43. I did 2 years in bodybuilding, got up to 215 pounds and 3% body fat in college.
Wow.
That was right when I first got married. So my wife would literally lay in bed and laugh at me as I did my poses in front of the mirror for my stage show.
Hilarious.
So technically,
you gotta give me some of those shots.
Technically, yeah.
So
Well, you could
insert
just Google search bodybuilding Ben or bodybuilding Ben Greenfield. Bodybuilding Ben Greenfield. A few should pop up.
I got to see this shot if you get it for me.
So anyways, that would be what, like 23 years. And I started my podcast 17 years ago. There were maybe 5 health. There was like Jillian Michaels, Dave Asprey, Rob Wolf, like a few random health podcasts.
Yeah.
You had to like submit your podcast and wait 2 weeks for Apple to accept it. And so started podcasting 17 years ago.
Let me see that.
And seen a lot of these folks come and go. Yeah. So that would have been.
Oh my God, you were looking ripped.
Yeah.
You're 215 in this
215 and 3%. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
That photo actually weighed down to 198 to actually weigh in properly, but prior to stripping down weight to get on stage, I got up to 215. And
So I didn't know
I
that.
could actually afford the drugs, so that was all like creatine and protein shakes and tuna fish.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So you're saying back in that day, in the day of the weightlifters, that
Right.
was the original biohackers.
No, that was not the original. That was early, what would be called biohacking. But if you actually look at the original biohackers back in like the 70s, you literally had human cyborgs. These are people who were implanting metal sensor or magnetic sensors in their fingertips that could interact with screens like Tom Cruise in Minority Report, or
Great movie, by the way.
implantable compasses in the chest that would vibrate every time that you face true north, or chlorophyll injected into the eyeballs for night vision. They called their bodies wetware, and then what they would install on their bodies would be hardware. Almost like I'm wearing a continuous glucose monitor, I'm wearing a continuous blood pressure monitor, I'm wearing a ring that monitors sleep and walking. But imagine these are actually implanted in my body.
Wow.
Like that was the original biohacking. And now it's been a little bit watered down. I mean, like if you put ghee in your green tea in the morning, you're considered to be biohacking. So I think it's almost become a word that's a little bit lazily thrown around as kind of synonymous with just like taking care of your body using advanced health concepts. But yeah, I briefly commented.
It just seems like there's been this industry explosion. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
even
huge,
the fact that we're in it, right? I'm in it.
People love the idea of modifying their bodies, time hacking health, figuring out a way to get results using better living through science that you might have not been able to normally attain or been able to attain at a much slower pace.
Yeah.
People love that idea.
How much do you think COVID had to do with accelerating the awareness of like, okay, there's something wrong with the foods, there's something wrong with the medicines?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think you wound up, I think several months or possibly a year or so into COVID, seeing some people realize that perhaps there was more to just masking and getting vaccinated. And obviously this still might be controversial for some people, though I think less so, more and more now. And people began to look into things, like everything from, ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and methylene blue. And so I think that it got a lot of people interested on mass scale because there was this big, scary disease out there, and there must be something more that you could do than say, just like, take a med.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It'd be interesting. I mean, you could obviously look at previous Google search data for certain terms and see how they correlate with the rise of COVID.
I know that we were, when we originally bought the company, it was 2019, and I was getting treated with IVs. There was something going around. Nobody knew what it was. It wasn't called COVID yet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, IV makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Once I got stuck with the IV, and I'm like, okay, I do feel better.
Yeah.
And then I started discovering the NAD, the different things you could use. Again, I'm short on all the vernaculars, but then the supplements. I'm like, I remember asking the question, like, these supplements. I never finish any of these supplements that I get.
Right.
None of them.
Right.
Like in 50 years, I've never completed an entire bottle of vitamin A,
Still?
vitamin B. Oh, no, now I do.
Yeah.
But I think my body knew that when I went to CVS or Walgreens and picked up some vitamin C.
Yeah.
It was like I was chewing it most of the time because it tasted good.
Yeah.
Not because, or eating them because I think, okay, I'm sick but it was never, I never believed that any of this stuff would work because the bottle I would pick up, you would pick up, my sister would pick up, my brother, I'm like, how can these supplements?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, I became interested. And then the next thing you know, at that time we were still using the capsules. We're still using the capsules now, right?
Of what?
Of the supplements.
Yeah.
You mean
instead
it was
of the
called
packets.
Streamline. The company was called Streamline because it wasn't streamlined.
Yeah.
And then I think they were just doing basically IVs.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't want this to be an IV business. I don't want to go get stuck every month because I don't feel good or I need a push or pop or whatever.
Difficult to scale too.
Huh?
Difficult to scale.
Yeah, and like nobody wants to stop. Most of these IV centers that I see are not doing well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I go there. There's never anybody in them.
And I actually don't know about the financials, but I would imagine wrapping up ancillary services along with the IVs is about the only way to do something like that.
Yeah,
like a lot of the IV centers now that I see.
Imagine you're driving down the road. Me and Brandon have this conversation all the time. I'm gonna go get an IV today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't even have time to barely get this other stuff done. Now I'm gonna go get stuck.
Right.
Which is not the friendliest, happiest moment I have.
Hungover in Vegas and eat a quick Myers cocktail.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, at that time it was Gary Brecka, right? I said, Gary, like this is not scalable. And I said, we need supplements affordable to the masses. And then we had all these bottles, and I'm like, I don't want to go through all these bottles every morning. God damn, I'm gonna get arthritis just undoing these, right?
Carpal tunnel.
And then exactly. And then we are now to this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, to me, like
microbead technology.
Tell me why is this better than me taking capsules? Because to me, it makes sense that it's going to get in my system faster.
Yeah. First of all, the most important thing is, your name's on there. It's customized for you, so it's made for Grant on there. So what happened was they took your genetic analyses, looked at the specific vitamins, nutrients, and minerals that you're genetically predisposed to be deficient in, and then made these packets that are
and they're called what
to
now?
you. They're called microbeads.
Uh-huh.
So that's actually Dr. Daniel from Wallendorfer, I think is how you pronounce his last name. So he's out of Austria and did a lot of the research on those, and the way that they're coated allows them to resist
coated.
They're coated, so they somehow resist the breakdown in the stomach in that acidic environment and get more fully absorbed in the small intestine. And I actually was concerned when I first took them the first few times. I was like, these things are hard. I don't know if you ever chewed on them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to see.
First time I got them, I chewed on them.
I'm going to see a bunch of beads in the toilet bowl the next morning, but they are actually getting absorbed. No, I thought I would, because usually something like that, it's like chia seeds, right? You eat a bunch of chia seeds that are raw and they just pass right through.
Hang on one second. This is Brandon Dawson right here. Yo, Brandon.
Yo, baby.
I'm with Big Ben. I'm with Big Ben right now.
Nice. Okay, did you get my text?
No, not yet.
Okay, because we have a sensitive subject that we gotta. In your heart post, you say King and Royal Family of UAE.
Yeah.
That's exactly who we're treating. So it's getting the attention now. We've gotten a couple calls saying, "What the fuck?" Because it's supposed to be entirely confidential, but it's on your post and your partner, so they're thinking you know this because you know that's who we're working with.
Yeah. Well, I can't,
those original calls.
Let me call you back when I'm done with this.
Okay. Okay, bye.
Okay, so
Okay, so we were talking about the packets and the microbead technology.
yeah, microbead.
And so
Do we have? I'm sorry, Ben. Do we have any of the old supplements that I had in the big containers? They're
Let me go check this one.
because that capsule, any capsule, but if I go to CVS or Walgreens, right, it's got a
Right.
powder in it.
yeah.
When I undo it, it's
Yeah,
a powder.
magnesium stearate, maltodextrin, sometimes
Yeah.
some kind of color. Yeah, there's a lot of fillers or what are called excipients so that they can pass through the machining properly when they make the actual capsule.
So does that break down in my stomach? Or
The capsule?
all that stuff that's in that
Yeah,
capsule,
the
as
hard
opposed to this?
capsule coating, which
Yeah.
is firm when you hold it, that usually breaks. I mean, you could put that in water, and
Right.
a lot of times they're made out of gelatin or something like that. You can see it dissolve. So a lot of people are like, well, aren't you going to get gastric upset if you're popping, like some of these biohackers do 100 capsules a morning? They actually do break down. So by the time they hit your large intestine, they're essentially the consistency of bone broth, if it is something like a gelatin coating. But the fillers inside,
Right.
that even though there's not research into what's X number of capsules that you could take before you start to see health effects of something like an excipient or a filler like stearate, it's something to think about. Like the objective,
exactly.
just the big picture objective from my standpoint is figure out a way to customize your supplementation program to you and to get as much as you can out of as few supplements as possible. And I'm not necessarily saying that because taking 100 capsules is bad for you, but it's just like a time hacking, carpal tunnel type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's easy to put one of those packets, whatever, in my fanny pack and then my fat carb blocker in the fanny pack and just, take those out when I go out to eat.
And that's what I loved about. I'm like, okay, this is easy. This is my entire day
Right.
of vitamins.
Right. And then there's certain things, because people ask me this, they're like, well, that's all you take? No, there's let's say like the longevity anti-aging industry, right? People talk about spermidine and NAD and urolithin A and, all these compounds, astaxanthin. You can certainly pick and choose and stack certain things on top of something like that, or a pre-workout, for example. But that would be like the base foundation. Here's what they found in my genetics. Here's what I need to do to replenish those specific or to plug up those specific holes.
So how does this recipe, if you will, this custom vitamin protocol get made for me? To bring me through the process. I did the gene test.
Right.
I sent it to them. 2 weeks later, I get the book.
Right.
Why does the book have to be so big? There's 600 pages of
A lot
details.
of stuff, because some of you can get as a PDF, but and there's 3 books.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a lot of SNPs that they're looking at.
SNPs?
So basically single nucleotide polymorphisms. I think that's what SNP SNP stands for. So they're looking at a bunch of different, to explain a better way, a bunch of different genetic pathways, right? Like the ones we were talking about with my kids and my wife, vitamin D and glutathione and, MTHFR and all these different pathways that will affect what type of nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that you need and in what amounts. So then they'll take that data, and I haven't been over to Austria to see the actual machines or the factory or how they're actually made, but they're essentially taking those genetic results and then customizing in each of these packets what you actually need, including the brown and beige one over there. That one is more based on digestion. Some people, there's different genes like the FTO gene, for example, that will dictate how good a job you do breaking down fat and how good a job you do breaking down carbs. So they'll look at that data and then give you something that you can take right before your meal to break down fats and carbs more effectively based on which that you break down less effectively. And there's typically a balance of that too. So you'd have either, more beige or more brown or more black in a packet like that.
And so why do I think, now when I take these, I'm confident that something's happening for me.
Right.
This
it's customized to you.
Yeah. But this, I just don't have any interest in. I don't think I have a fat
more
problem.
Like, that would be for 2 reasons. Number one is whatever, not to get too graphic, but you take a dump in the morning and you're seeing a bunch of fatty, oily, greasy type of stool because you're not digesting
I don't pay that
fats
much
properly.
I don't pay that much attention to
you're seeing a a poor energy response after a meal because you're breaking down carbohydrates ineffectively, or you want to lose weight. Like that would be another reason that you'd want to pay attention to fat, carb metabolism. That one is, in my opinion, less important. It's more of a gastric health and weight loss type of approach. But I mean, because you tested those genes, it wouldn't hurt to take it before a meal. But then the colored one, the fun looking one, that one's actually got a lot more of the firepower in it. For
now, what do you say to people that say this is expensive? And is it expensive? I have no clue whether what things actually.
Anytime you customize, it's more expensive. Yeah.
Than me buying. You're buying 15 bottles of.
Yeah. But if you're buying 15 bottles of stuff and taking something you don't need,
like I have a cabinet in my house that used to be filled with 2 rows of supplements. When I go on the road, I have to get a suitcase.
Let's take vitamin D, for example.
Yeah.
So we're talking about vitamin D. Now, some people will not express vitamin D receptor, the VDR receptor, very effectively. So they need lots of vitamin D. They have to essentially saturate the body with vitamin D. And so in a packet like that, they're going to get more vitamin D. Let's say that you actually have a really good VDR expression and you don't even need that much vitamin D receptor.
Okay.
So you got really good VDR activity, and like for you, it's enough to just be outside in the sunshine for 20 to 45 minutes a day.
That's probably true.
Well, then in that case, if someone told you that vitamin D is a good idea to take and you're going to whatever CVS or Walgreens or Costco or whatever and buying vitamin D, it's a total waste of money for you.
Right.
And actually, beyond that, taking a bunch of vitamin D, if you don't actually need vitamin D and you already have high blood levels of vitamin D, can pull a bunch of calcium in the arteries and increase your risk for calcification and heart issues. So the idea behind customization is twofold. 1, feel better because you're getting the precise balance of what you need. And 2, don't make expensive pee because you're taking a bunch of stuff that your body doesn't actually need. So,
and that is the first thing I noticed with about 10 days of taking the precision supplements was I was not having this experience with urine of seeing something in all these supplements being pissed out.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't. When I take these supplements, I don't have the experience of my urine being different.
Really? You could like smell or see like a change in the color of your urine?
Dude, everything. Like I'm seeing colors and
you're like the pee detective. I mean, besides methylene blue. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah,
but
I've noticed that.
You can definitely see that. It kind of upsets my wife about the blue in the toilet bowl.
Yeah.
But
porcelain, that's what porcelain's
I mean,
for.
if you're going to excrete a lot of the stuff that you're not using in the urine, in the stool, and sometimes in the sweat.
And wouldn't there be a buildup of that? To me, like all those little gelatins. No.
If
I'm doing
unlikely.
Okay.
I don't think that people need to be as worried. Assuming it's good supplements, right? You go to like GNC and you get a pre-workout and all the capsules are yellow and red and green. You're basically getting a bunch of those colors, some of whom, I think RFK recently, passed legislation to remove from our food supply.
Right.
So there are certain fillers that are definitely bad news bears, especially in the less expensive supplements, or not to offend anyone and get beat up later on at the gym, but like the gym head, meathead, bro pre-workouts. Like a lot of that stuff just has a bunch of chemical crap in it. But I think that an average well-made capsule, you have to worry less about the fillers and more about how much time am I taking to open all this stuff and take all this stuff, and do I actually need it versus can I get more done at once and have it customized.
What do you think people are missing right now? Because you mentioned RFK in the food supply. You're old enough to have seen it change over the years.
Yeah.
I know sugars.
Thank you, I think.
No. Yeah, you're welcome. Well, because I remember sugars when I was a kid. Sugars are different today than they were.
Yeah. What do you mean?
The sugars, the refined sugars, appear to me to be different. My response to sugar when I was 15 years old into candies, hard candies.
Yeah.
Is different than today.
Yeah.
Something changed in the supply.
Well, I think
in the manufacturing of these products.
I think the sugar piece, we can't really like look back at our youth when we had screaming high metabolisms, because like my sons can eat oatmeal and candy and cake all day and they're just out running and playing lacrosse. Like they're burning it off. Kind of like back to how you and I could drink 10 beers in college and run a marathon the next morning.
Right.
But when you look at what's more critically missing from the food supply. One glaring example, I just moved onto a farm in Idaho, and for the first couple of years, all we'll be doing before we introduce cattle or crops is building up the soil, planting rhizomes, spreading hay with molasses and honey on top of it, building up the bacteria in the soil, and increasing the mineral composition of the soil so that
Before you even
eventually
plant.
the crops that grow
Right.
actually have a decent amount of minerals and nutrients in them from the soil itself. And if you look at something called monocropping in the U.S., essentially growing the same crop over and over and over again,
Stripping the soil.
depleting the soil of
Right.
nutrients and minerals, and doing that for years on end, versus something like rotational planting, or you look up a guy like Joel Salatin, great farmer. I've read his books. I'm learning some stuff from him. He'll do rotational grazing with his chickens, and they'll poop, and they'll follow those up with the cattle. So you've got a really good bacterial composition of the soil. Those practices are few and far between. So the first thing is the average produce that you buy from the grocery store is more void in minerals and nutrients. You look at meat, for example, and the idea behind the omega fatty acid composition in your body, and that's another one to think about. So you could actually do a test and find out, do I have a good balance of omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6 fatty acids? Omega-6 fatty acids aren't all bad, but a very high amount relative to omega-3s can be kind of inflammatory. So if you look at cattle and chickens and pigs that are fed a constant diet of grains, usually they're also, fattened up using hormones. You see concentrated marbling. You see high omega-6 count. You're looking at lower omega-3 fatty acid content. So then just those two examples alone, you can make a case for, well, if those are the type of foods that you're eating, then you're going to need a higher amount of minerals and a higher amount of omega-3 fatty acids. I mean, there's many other examples of ways that we've stripped certain things out of the food supply. But yeah, I mean, it definitely makes a case. I wrote an article about this on my website a few years ago, the case for supplementation when people say, can't I get it all from food? You technically could if you are fermenting and soaking and sprouting and unlocking nutrients and taking lots of time to eat a widely varied diet, like a Blue Zone diet of 100 different vegetables and fruits and herbs and spices and meats. But it's more difficult to do. So I consider supplementation to be better living through science.
Yeah. Do you think, are you confident or excited about RFK actually changing things?
Yeah.
You
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just something as simple as tallow. Tallow is incredible.
Who's doing that? Steak and Shake?
I saw a list of like 6 restaurants that have switched. I don't think McDonald's has yet. I think Steak and Shake was one. There's one. I eat out so seldomly that I don't remember all the restaurants. But there was a list of, I think, 6 big ones that are switching to tallow, which is great. It's higher in fat soluble vitamins. It's better for the hair, the skin, and the nails. It's tastier. It has less inflammation.
So why did they get off of tallow?
I think that a big part of that was the increase in the use of seed oils due to the corn and grain subsidization. There was like an increased amount of seed oils in the food supply. And then the perception that started with a guy named Ansel Keys, I think this was back in the 60s or something like that, that saturated fat or fat like tallow that's solid at room temperature is bad for the heart, which is not necessarily the case, but a lot of those fats were replaced with, if they were solid at room temp, they're replaced with Crisco and margarine, a lot of these trans fats, which we now know are unhealthy. But I believe that seed oils became less expensive while at the same time saturated fats became more villainized. But like I have potato chips and tortilla chips at my house now, and they're all just made with tallow. This company called Ancient Crunch, right? They make tortilla chips called masa and potato chips called Veni, and it's all just tallow. It's incredible.
Yeah, and the tallow is from what?
Beef.
Okay.
Yeah, and apparently there is an enormous amount of tallow in the food supply. Like if you look at any farm that's raising cattle, apparently they just have tons of tallow left over. So it's not as though it's going to be that expensive. Yeah, it's plentiful. It's not going to be that expensive to replace seed oils with tallow.
Now, when the seed oils that people are so concerned about, is this an overreaction at this point? Because it sounds like seed oils now are like the...
It's a little bit of an overreaction because seed oils aren't necessarily bad for you. You could make a pretty strong case.
Seed oil is what? So I understand.
So this would be like an oil that's extracted from like rapeseed, which would be canola oil, sesame seed, which would be sesame oil, sunflower oil from a sunflower seed. If you want to call an olive or an avocado a seed, which it kind of is, olive oil, avocado oil, etc. Like any oil that's extracted from a seed. And it can be extracted using gentler extraction methods like cold pressing. Like if you go to the Whole Foods salad bar, they're using cold pressed canola oil. It can be extracted using harsh methods, high amounts of temperature, chemicals, pressure, etc. The harsher extraction methods can cause damage to the oil. And when you consume an oil that's rancid or that's oxidized or that could cause inflammation in the body, you're looking at a buildup of those oils over time that could be worse for you than eating a high amount of sugar.
It could be worse
because those oils hang around the body for a long time. Like if I was at the county fair and you came up to me and offered me like a stick of cotton candy or a corn dog, I'd eat the cotton candy 10 times out of 10 because I can just run around, take some rides, go and walk, do some push-ups, and burn off that sugar.
Right.
But the rancid fats in that fried corn dog are going to go on to comprise part of my cell membrane for, depending on the research that you look at, anywhere from 3 months and up to 2 years.
Wow.
So the issue is not...
You're saying that corn dog's bad because of the rancid...
Yeah, because it's been fried.
Fried.
And I'm not against fried food. A lot of times when I'm at a restaurant, I'll do a whole fried fish. So a few of the things I think about when it comes to oils. First of all,
oils.
If I'm going to have something that's been fried or heated in oil, I want an oil that's as stable as possible. So this would be like extra virgin olive oil because it has a lot of antioxidants, what are called polyphenols and flavonols in it that allow it to be pretty stable up to, I think it's around like 450 degrees or something like that. Avocado oil, macadamia nut oil, ghee, which is basically just clarified butter. Yeah, or butter.
But is ghee butter actually an oil?
Ghee is like a clarified butter.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an oil. It's a fat. Yeah, they're kind of synonymous. Tallow. So any of these are pretty stable, but even then, you don't want to repeatedly fry them because then you create something called HNEs, hydroxynonenols, which are inflammatory. And this is something
don't reuse the oil the way my mom did.
If you're gonna make, let's say you want to make fries, like we're gonna make some sweet potato fries and avocado oil at home. And I'm a bigger fan of the air fryer, anyways, because you don't have to worry about that. You can still get a pretty good potato fry. But if you want to fry, just fry one time and use a stable oil. Now, when people say all seed oils are bad, you could pull out a lot of data showing that there are populations who consume a high amount of seed oils who actually have a low risk of heart disease and don't have any lipid abnormalities or cholesterol issues, etc. So it is the way in which the seed oils are consumed and the way that they're extracted. So if you're looking at fast food, high amount of fried food that's been fried multiple times using oil that's been extracted in a very harsh way, that's when you have to start worrying about it. But it kind of annoys me when people just throw the word seed oil around willy-nilly. It's like sugar. I mean, I can get sugar
what happens to me as a consumer is somebody that doesn't really understand.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, I'm scared of every oil now is a problem. Am I not supposed to? And I'm terrified of my damn cabinet, my food cabinet.
Yeah, it's a little bit of fear mongering. It's like sugar. Like people say, I'm avoiding sugar. I'm like, well, what kind of sugar are you avoiding? Because I can find sugar in parsnips, beets, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes.
Yeah.
My wife's fermented sourdough bread, a bar of like ultra dark chocolate. Like if you look at the nutrient density of the food that contains the sugar, and if that nutrient density is high relative to the sugar content, it's kind of a non-issue. Or at least less of an issue.
Can the same be said about folic acids? Because I hear this overall statement about all folic acids, the spraying is terrible.
Synthetic folic acid, particularly in people who don't convert it properly into bioavailable folate in the body, can cause inflammation. Now, I think if you're eating a diet that's high in fortified cereals and grains, you're probably eating a pretty processed and ultra-processed diet anyways. So just by the mere nature of eating a lower amount of ultra-processed and processed foods, you're going to get less folic acid. And, on a gene test like that, you can see how big of a problem it is for you. But even if you don't have the MTHFR issue that would cause folic acid to be inflammatory, if you're reducing synthetic folic acid, you're going to be eating a cleaner diet anyways, because you're just eating less, cartoon character cereal boxes from the grocery store.
And I was brought up on all that stuff. So
me too.
Well, I guess we all were. So I don't know why I feel special.
Yeah, except
so
one
Lucky
hippie,
Charms,
one
dude,
hippie
Cheerios,
friend who got lucky.
Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me why should everyone do that genetic test? why should everybody do this little test and have it sent
Well-
in to find out? You do this one time in your life, right? Not twice.
Until gene therapy progresses and people can actually change their genes, yeah, you only do it once. And I don't think that CRISPR gene editing is going to take over the planet anytime soon. Even though that's another thing that's rolling out in biohacking now. People are literally getting like gene therapy injections to change certain genes.
Oh my
But they're
God.
pretty fringe genes, like one for like follistatin for muscle gain, or one called Clotho for cognition, et cetera. But these are pretty few and far between and very fringe. So assuming that your genes are going to stay the same for the rest of your life, then if you take a look at and this is what I think is the most important thing, you take a look at what potential diseases or nutrient, vitamin, and mineral deficiencies that you are predisposed towards. You are then armed with data that allows you to take control of your life and your health and your lifespan. When genes, like I remember way back when 23andMe started rolling out, there were so many people that said, I don't want to like know what I'm going to die of. Like that's horrible. It's depressing.
Yeah.
Well, I've done some of the gene testing that will look at. So here's the thing, like that test is not necessarily going to tell you here are the different diseases that you're going to die of, because there are regulatory issues that keep us from being able to do that. But it can tell you here are the vitamins, the minerals, and the nutrients that you are at risk of being deficient in, that if you're deficient in could then potentially lead to these chronic diseases manifesting. So if you have a high risk for type 2 diabetes, which on that test would show poor carbohydrate metabolism, you would do something like which I have, by the way, you would wear a glucose monitor, or you would, shift to like a slightly more ketogenic approach. Or let's say you're like my wife and you have a high risk for osteoporosis. Well, all of a sudden weightlifting is going to be more important for you than yoga and the treadmill, and you're going to make sure you're getting a lot of minerals in your diet. Or if you're like one of my sons or me that has the low vitamin D receptor activity, you're going to supplement with vitamin D. So it allows you, and I think this is kind of obvious what I'm saying based on the discussion that we've just had, but I'll just drive it home again. It allows you to take any supplements, any nutrition, even any lifestyle factors, because it will show you also like how your body responds to power versus endurance exercise, etc.
Yeah.
And you can tweak and customize what you're doing accordingly so that you feel better and live longer. It's just arming yourself with actionable data that's customized to you.
Yeah. So when I look at this, Ben, it tells me when I got the book, I don't know, maybe 10 days after I did the gene test, it says your daily requirement. It's going to tell me all the minerals I need and exactly 171 milligrams of magnesium.
Right. Which you don't have to get a kitchen scale and measure out. It's like it's in that packet. So
it's in this packet.
yeah. Yeah.
There's 171 milligrams of magnesium in this.
There should be. Might be 170.5, but it's going to be pretty close.
So pretty close to. So manganese, it tells me selenium, zinc, copper, iron I have a high need for, calcium a high need, manganese a high need, selenium a high need, vitamin C a high need, vitamin E a high need.
Right.
How do I take this methyfolate high need?
Yeah.
Dude, I got a lot of high needs here. I'm a high need need case. Vitamin B2 a high need. Omega-3 fatty acids high need. MSM a high need.
There's like hundreds of factors you could look at. It's only listing the ones that you have a high need for. So
but I mean, based on this, bro, I would have 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 22 different vitamins I would have to take every day.
22 different beads in that little packet. Yeah.
Okay. So I'd have to have 22 different supplements.
Yeah. Theoretically,
saying,
unless there was like a certain supplement that combined like 3 or 4 of those or whatever. But you'd have to have a lot of bottles to replace all that stuff. And you would need to ensure that each of those bottles has the milligram or gram amount that you actually need.
Yes.
So you're essentially
So the next time, guys, next time we do this, I need the 22 different supplements in all the bottles. We're going to insert it, showing all the bottles I would have to have.
Right. Show the bottle of manganese and methylfolate and vitamin
100%.
C and vitamin E.
So how do I know when I get the book, or when somebody's watching gets the book? It's at 10xhealthsystem.com, by the way, and it gets personalized to me. Or let's say I don't want to get the supplements.
Right.
I want to go buy them myself at CVS or Walgreens
Yeah.
or wherever. How do I go to the pharmacist and say, this is what I need, and I need 171 milligrams of magnesium?
No, you aren't going to go to the pharmacist for that.
Well, why not? Why wouldn't I? Why,
the pharmacist
that's what the pharmacist
didn't.
was
They're
for.
going to fill a prescription for you. I mean, you could find a random. You could probably, if you had
Say
a lot
my
of
brother-
money,
let's say
you had
my
a lot of
brother-in-law
money
is
to
a
spare, you could
pharmacist.
find a fancy compounding pharmacist and bring that book to them and tell them, I want you to make me a cream or a lotion or a tablet that has all of these in it. And if you pay them a lot of money, a lot more than you pay for that packet, they could probably do it for you. Otherwise, you're going to be wandering up and down the aisle of Walgreens or CVS or GNC and literally holding that book up as you go through for about an hour and select and keep your fingers crossed that you got everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We'll just do it. I mean, you could theoretically find a really, really good multivitamin and kind of sort of, half-assed shotgun your way into replenishing a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's way less precise.
How
than
long
doing a
should
packet.
someone give this? Let's say they say, I'm going to order the gene test and I'm going to get the supplements. I'm going to have the precision supplements. How long is a fair test for them to give these supplements to see a difference?
I don't know.
It's a good question.
It's a good question. So I can't say that I've seen any research that says, hey, here's your genetic test. Here is the point at which you're going to start. Because some things you feel almost immediately. Like, let's say you have sluggish energy levels and brain fog because you've got just plummeted vitamin D levels. Then you're going to feel that within a few days. Other things, especially minerals, they build up over time. You might be looking at 8 to 12 weeks. It's tough to say when we're talking about 20 plus different things. So I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't know if it's ever been studied.
Yeah,
just because this is a brand new field, brand new science.
Yeah. Well, I know that I'm just happenstance going in there. That's why I gave up on all these vitamins. I started with that today. I've never, ever, I don't think I've ever completed one bottle of supplements because I just, and I never took all 22 for any length of time.
Yeah.
This is the most consistent I've ever been with my vitamin supplements and regimens and with the oxygen, the red light, and the methylene.
Yeah, I think a part of it is the psychological factor that if you simplify and let's just say that somebody who's watching right now, they want to feel really good. So just start with that. Get a genetic test, take the packet, do the Superhuman protocol on as many days of the week as you can. Maybe take some methylene blue beforehand. And the simplification, right? Cutting through all the clutter and confusion. It's like me. If I walk into a super fancy, let's say, Lifetime Fitness, and there's 100 different machines there, I will have a horrible workout if I don't walk in there with a plan. Because there's just too much confusion. Even though all of it's great, I just don't have a plan. But if I simplify, I know I'm going in today. I'm doing 3 triple supersets, a push, a pull, and a legs. And these are the 3 machines and the 3 exercises and the 3 moves I'm doing for each of those triple supersets. I have a fantastic workout because it's all just laid out for me. It's precise. It's laser focused, and I'm going to be consistent with something like that. It's like when somebody comes to me and they want to lose as much fat as possible. I have a very simple protocol, and I've worked with Hollywood celebrities to get them trimmed down for a movie role, and executives just want to burn a bunch of fat fast, or people want to get ready for a wedding. So a very simple protocol.
If I'm in a movie, you're going to get me ready for it.
That's right. It's called Strike, Stroll, Shiver. You get up in the morning, strike, stroll, shiver. You get up in the morning, you put anything in your body that's caffeinated. Coffee, green tea. Only rule is it can't have calories. So it can't be the 600 calorie orange mocha frappuccino, right? It's got to be something that's just
4 shots. 4 shots.
Coffee. Yeah. And that's because caffeine enhances fatty acid oxidation. So it's going to shift your body.
And caffeine's good for me. The book says, hey, you can hammer this stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife actually has the super slow caffeine oxidizer genes for years. And I went through her book with her. She got hers 2 months ago. And I'm like, babe, this is why you feel crappy when you drink coffee and why you feel better when you drink green tea, because green tea balances out the caffeine with theanine, which slows down the caffeine release and balances it out a little bit.
So some people can, just for the viewer, some people can handle caffeine.
Or they can't handle that much caffeine because they burn it really, really slowly. So if you take a bunch, you just I am a fast coffee. I could do this before dinner and still sleep.
Dude, I can have this before I go to bed.
Yeah.
I can take 4 shots lay
Right.
down, and bang, just
Yeah.
sleep
Yeah,
like a baby.
Exactly. So probably some ancient Italian genes that you have.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, strike.
We're running because we were running all the time.
Exactly.
We're trying to catch
yeah.
a boat.
Yeah. Chasing dwarf goats up a hill. And then stroll is basically you go out and you do 20 minutes of easy cardio.
Free.
Take your dog,
That's free.
Take your dog
That's free.
for a
Costs you
walk,
nothing, by the way.
Go for a swim, do some
Yeah,
yoga, walk your kids to the bus stop, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the last step, people don't like it, but it amplifies fat burning by taking a bunch of adipose tissue and converting it into metabolically active fats called shiver. And you do 2 to 5 minutes of cold. It could be a cold shower, cold plunge, whatever.
Got it.
And I have people do that on as many days of the week as possible. So it's strike, stroll, shiver. So anything with caffeine, easy aerobic exercise, because most people get out of bed and go for a walk. A lot of people won't get out of bed and go to an hour at the gym.
Yeah.
But they will
Yeah.
consistently get out of bed and do that. And then the cold, it's like, well, you're going to take a shower anyways. You could start with the hot, get to the cold eventually.
Yeah.
But
Ease
the
into
reason
it.
I bring that up as an example is if I give someone as simple a protocol as that, they'll do that 365 days a year, because it's not, here's the 5 different fat burning supplement options, and here's the 8 different workouts that you could do in the morning, and we could go sauna plus cold, or a hot cold shower,
Right.
or a hot tub to a cold plunge. It's just, no. Get up, have a cup of coffee, go for a walk, come back, take a cold shower. And once you simplify like this,
None of those cost
back to
any
something
money,
like
by the
this.
way.
Yeah, it's similar. It's like,
Yeah.
do a genetic test, get your packet, do the Superhuman protocol on as many days of the week as possible, and that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
Now, the red light, and then we'll end with this, and we should do this again, though.
yeah.
We should get together and
Yeah.
do this again, because I think at least I get helped from
Yeah.
this. I get support. Well, I called the guy that we did the deal with, Da Vinci, on the red light beds.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason. Jason.
Yeah. And I said, bro, the lights aren't working. True story. I said, look, there's 4 rows of lights, and 3 of them are not working.
The non-visible infrared
and I'm using the
spectrum.
red light
Yeah.
every day, and I'm
Yeah.
confident the red light gives me more energy.
Yeah.
It helped my skin. I just intuitively know something's happening with that red light. And
Yeah.
I called him. I was like, bro, the lights aren't working.
Yeah.
3 out of 4 rows do
Yeah.
not work.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Why are
the
you laughing?
Cheap, crappy lights, I guess.
I said, this bed's 125 grand, and 3 of the 4 rows aren't working.
Yeah.
Why aren't the
'Cause
lights
your eyes
working?
can't see them, but your cells can. Your eyes can't see them,
excuse
but
me.
your cells can. So
invisible light.
The near infrared and
What
the
an
far
idiot.
infrared, you actually can't see those light spectrums.
Yeah.
Well, you can't consciously, visibly
Yeah.
see them. So when you're on a red light bat or on a red light panel, or you're using any red light device, and it's full spectrum light, you've got the red light spectrum, which you can see.
Mm-hmm.
But then once you get up to, I think it's about 650, light is measured in nanometers. Once you get up to about 650 nanometers on up, you can't actually see that light. It's still getting absorbed. It's still having its effect. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that actually confuses a lot of people. They're like, whatever, on the panel, it's like half these circles aren't even on.
Right.
Yeah.
So is this why I feel better when I'm on a beach,
Yeah.
spent time in the salt water, and I'm underneath the sun?
You feel better.
I do. I mean,
because
like
you're-
everybody knows it.
You're getting full spectrum light.
Yeah.
But then, I walked here 1.5 miles from the Marriott in my socks, because I'm absorbing all the negative ions and getting all of the effects of what's called grounding or earthing. It's very anti-inflammatory. So you're getting that, assuming that you're not wearing your Skechers on the beach. And then finally, if you look at immersion in water, particularly water that has a high amount of minerals in it, like salt water from the ocean,
Right.
you are actually hypercharging the grounding effect by a very, very large magnitude. So essentially, the best way to ground in earth is, and this is great for jet lag too, get in a body of water or a pool that's simply on a ground floor, and you're getting that grounding and earthing effect really magnified. But then when you combine that with sunlight and contact with the surface of the planet, think about it this way.
None of these things cost any money, by the way.
No, it's free.
You just got to get over there.
Is free. Your body.
Mother
Now, if
Nature's
you look
free.
at something like whatever, a red light bed and a PEMF mat, you're taking those same benefits and just like concentrating them at a higher amplitude. But a lot of this stuff is free. And if you think about it this way, the body is a battery. The body is a battery. So then there's even old books about this, like Robert Becker has a book called The Body Electric, or Jerry Tennant's book, Healing is Voltage. Great books if you want to dig into this. But every single cell in your body operates at a slight negative charge on the inside and a slight positive charge on the outside. So you've got this electrochemical gradient at which the cell is supposed to be operating. if you look at the modern electrical soup that we live in, right? Wi-Fi, smart appliances, all the things I tried to avoid putting into my home, radio frequencies from the phone, etc. All of those cause a calcium influx into the cell. And if you think back to high school chemistry, calcium is a positively charged ion. So essentially, by being surrounded by what's called non-native EMF, high amounts of electromagnetic fields that are not the same as you find in nature, you're essentially taking what's supposed to be a slightly negative charge in the cell and making it less negative. That affects metabolism, it affects energy, it affects sleep. And when you combine that with people like you and I who fly on airplanes, or the average person wearing big built-up rubber-soled shoes half the time, not getting the conductive electricity from the surface of the planet, you are essentially walking around with a drained battery for much of the time.
Right.
Every time.
And that really describes, I think, how most people feel.
Yeah.
Like a drained
like a drained battery. And there's other things that, I mean,
running
you
on
talk
low.
about, like, you know, minerals and nutrients, stuff like that affects it too. But if you look at it, and this is cool, every time lightning strikes the surface of the planet or solar radiation bombards the surface of the planet, it accumulates and collects negative ions. So every time any part of your skin touches the surface of the planet or
You're
gets
picking
in a
up-
body of
Wow.
water that's connected to the planet,
Wow.
you're absorbing those negative ions and you're recharging the body.
Wow, interesting.
So think about it this way. Let's say you're listening right now and you live in an urban area, or you're not near the beach and the ocean.
Get a mat.
Exactly.
Get a red light.
Get a mat that you can lay on, because the one time of your life, arguably the third of your life, that your body has the best chance to repair and recover is when you're in bed. Have as much stuff in the bedroom unplugged as possible. Turn off your Wi-Fi router at night. Have something like a PEMF mat that you have plugged in. I actually have mine plugged into what's called a dirty electricity filter. So essentially you're getting very low EMF in the room. And then do something like red light therapy, and you're charging the battery every day with a protocol like that. So yeah, the body is a battery. And honestly, a lot of the things that we talked about in this podcast, it's all related to that electrochemical balance. Even the minerals, when we're talking about the soil, what do you need to carry a charge? You need minerals. So if you have a high intake of electrolytes and minerals, or you're salting your food regularly and combining that with earthing, grounding, PEMF, sunlight, and red light, you're getting the battery recharged.
So these kind of products, right? This is a hydration product.
Right.
Why is
Minerals.
that? Why is that important for my for me to
It's
be
minerals.
throwing in my water?
You're going to absorb more water when it has minerals in it, and you're also going to be able to carry a charge much better when you're replenishing minerals. And a lot of people, I mean, different people lose minerals at different rates. That's not tested on the gene test, but I used to race triathlon for Team Timex. I did Ironman triathlon. I did Ironman Hawaii 6 times, 13 different races. So I used to race all over the globe. And we had an exercise physiologist come in and test us, and he did what's called a sweat sodium analysis, where they put a patch on you and they measure how much sodium, how many electrolytes you're actually losing in your sweat. And I was losing 3 times the amount of any other athlete on the team.
Wow.
Now, at that point, based on my standard university education and nutrition, I was kind of salt phobic. I thought salt would increase your blood pressure and it was acidic. And yes, that's true for sodium chloride, like the average table salt or the sodium chloride that you find as a preserving agent in ultra-processed food. But full spectrum minerals, something like this that has a wide range of electrolytes and minerals in it, once I started doing that and switching to really, really good salt, like even in my backpack over there, I got a bag of salt, and I travel over with really good salt, sprinkle it heavily on my food. Automatically, I'd lay in bed at night and I couldn't feel my blood pressure pounding in my ears like I thought was normal after a hard training day. My recovery improved. Every aspect related to keeping the battery charged was improved by adding electrolytes and minerals into the diet. So the idea behind those is you would just basically, like, I find water a little bit boring. Like, it's pretty rare that I drink water without something like minerals or hydrogen or something added to it that makes the water
they're
better.
loading me up now. They bring me water and bang, it's all bomb with hydration, salt.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're rocking the 10X Health. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you doing with us? Explain to the audience what has been the biohacker, one of the original OGs doing with 10X Health System.
Helping you guys to get the word out about many of the things that we just talked about. The Superhuman protocol, the genetic test, basically helping to educate the world on my platform and yours about a lot of the cool cutting edge things that you guys are doing. And then the second thing is I'm actually doing consults with a lot of people who are coming to 10X. I'm not a doctor. I don't give out medical advice, but I fill people in on the cool tools and biohacking gadgets and ways to get better performance, how to interpret their labs properly. And So helping your clients and customers out, and then helping to get the word out.
Yeah, and that's what I want from you. So I need a free consult from Ben. Okay, maybe we'll do it next time. Like
that would actually be fun. Just do a podcast where we go through
my
data.
stuff. Go through my stuff because I need to know. I like knowing. I like knowing, hey, dude, why am I doing this? As opposed to just like, go do this. And I'm like, okay, but I don't know why. It's like,
I don't know if you want the whole world to know you're going to go bald when you're 70.
Bro.
That's what the genetics say.
Look, trust me, this ain't going away. Okay. If you guys want to know how to have this head of hair without any plugs. The first time I met Elena, first time we went on a date, by the way, it took me 26 phone calls to get her interested in me. And then we finally went on a date. And then we were starting to smooch a little bit. And she had her hands on my head up here, and I'm like, "You feel them?" And she's like, "Do I feel what?" I'm like, "The plugs." And this is 22 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So I'm 40. I guess I'm 45 at the time.
Yeah.
And she's like, "You have hair plugs?" I said, "You don't feel them?" She's like, "No, don't." Like, I said, "No, this is the real.
It's real.
So,
It's all real, all natural."
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for being here today,
Cool,
man.
man.
I appreciate it. Love everything. And the next time we get together, we should literally go through my book.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Might need 2 cups of coffee for that. But.
Yeah. Thanks.